So we're going to be making a wire tree, and these bases from Chalmers Gems are absolutely fantastic. She has all sorts of rocks and wonderful gems. This is black tourmaline, and you can see the amazing stratas on it. Apparently it's fantastic for grounding. So what we need to make this stone, rather for the base of the stone, is you need the wire for the tree. And I have pre-cut these 0.4 26 gauge pieces. They're about 12 inches. I wanted to save you the time of watching me do this. So you cut for a base about this size, I would say about 12 inches a foot, because you've got to have enough to go around and enough for the tree and enough for the blossom. So I've got about 40 strands of 0.4, and then you will need something for the blossom. I thought I would use, and you can use anything you want as long as it's not too heavy, it's a bit of peridot there, and I've also got some moonstone, and I've got some garnet, and I thought I'd mix these up just to give a bit of colour variation, but really use anything you've got to hand. And Chalmers Gems as well have amazing selection of little chips and stones that you can use for the blossom. As for tools, we will need the trusty snips, your chain nose pliers and round nose pliers. So that's probably all you need. And so to cut your strands, I don't probably need to show you, but just in case, just cut one and then use that as a guide and cut about 30 or 40 more. And the way you'll know when to stop is when you put them together, that will be the width of your tree trunk. Right, now to get started. So what you do is you want to twist all those wires together at the center, because this is going to be the stem of your tree. And as you twist, it will sort of evolve and shape itself into a sort of gnarly trunk. Don't put too much emphasis on that shape as yet, because we'll come back and work on that later. And then this area will be the roots of the tree, and the other area on the opposite side will be the blossom side. So to create each side of the tree, you want to separate, and I don't count, I literally visually split these wires into about 3 different portions or sections. So I try and get them so they're not crossing over too much. Don't worry if one section is thinner than the other. That won't matter, because we want to make the tree look sort of, not perfectly, we wanted to make it look natural. And so you're splitting, as you can see, those areas, and then we can do the same on the other side so that the twist doesn't come apart. So again, I mean, it doesn't have to be 3, it can be 2, but I find 3 more balanced when I'm making this. So just grip it and twist a little bit. Try not to use any tools, your pliers, to hold it, because you'll work harden the wire. So that's how you get started. You've got the 2 areas, the stem, the roots and the blossom end. Now I'm going to leave the root end for a minute, and then I'm going to show you how I make the branches. So once again, I want to split them off into 3, and again, you don't have to count. So this one's only got 2 wires, but that's okay, and this one's got about 4, but I'm still okay with that because I want it to look natural, and some branches will be thicker than others. And then again, I carry on splitting these into sections. So you twist a little bit, split again, and then twist. So this sort of thing can be done, when you're watching television, or you've got some music on, or you've got a drink on the side, or you're chatting. It's one of those very, very therapeutic crafts. And it does take a while to make one of these trees, but you can stop and start at any point. So you can see how each segment I again separate and continue splitting off. And that's really all it is. And you'll do the same actually for the roots. It's a question of splitting them up again, twisting and splitting. Now to create the blossomed areas, what you do is you would take, when you get to a point where you've just got two of the wires, that's when you can start threading. So you would pick up your selection of chips or stones that you're going to use, and all I would say at this point is don't use heavy tumble stones for this, because it will weight the wires down. This is not a strong tree, it's only 0.4 wires, so it can be top heavy. So I'm going to just put on just a selection, a mixture, say 4 or 5 maximum. And then to create the blossom, so that's threaded, as you can see, onto the wire. And then to create the blossom, I'm going to bring the wire around into a loop. So there's my loop, and I'm gripping it at the point where the last twisted stem was. And then if I grip it there with my fingers and the other side with my other hand and twist all the beads together, I create a little cluster which will be one of the blossoms. And for the other side I can do the same thing. So again, don't think too hard about, you know, perfectionism of proportion here. Just pick up the beads as you sort of see them on the mat and make a nice little cluster. And again, doesn't matter, but you can choose the length there. Grip it where the last twisted stem was. Hold the beads at the end of the loop, and you're almost sort of pulling away as you twist, and that creates a nice even little stalk. Now you'll have leftover wires coming out. I would always cut the shortest wire off, and if I have a wire that's about 1 inch, so it's not long enough, that one is not long enough to create another piece of blossom, I turn that into a little bit of a spiral. So I pick up my round nose pliers, make a little circle, hold that circle in my chain nose pliers and push the wire around it, and that will create a little mini wire spiral that comes close to the branch. As you can see, it sits against there, and then later on what I'm going to do is push that spiral out and separate separate it a bit, and that gives a little sort of tendril on the tree, so it just adds another little detail. So any leftover wires like that, it's very easy just to create these little spirals and create another little depth to your tree. So as you can see, it's just a case of carry on separating all the wires, splitting them into the branches, picking up and threading it onto the stones, and creating all these little beaded clusters. You'll find some of these beads so small but to thread, and then it could probably take you 1.5 hours, or depending how big the tree you're making. And I'm not going to bore you watching me do the whole thing, so we'll come back in a moment and I'll show you how far I've got with the blossom. So just continue on like that, creating all these clusters, and later on we'll work out how to make it look aesthetic. So here you have it. I've got all the blossom on. I think I might have made it a little bit top heavy, got a bit carried away with those lovely gemstones, but you can see now how it's taking shape as a tree. I haven't actually started, you know, positioning the branches, but I'll do that right at the end. That's almost like flower arranging at the end. And I've started twisting the roots out. I'm just going to show you, before I carry on, to show you how you do the roots, some others that I have made. Now, Chalmers Gems, lovely Marie from Chalmers Gems, gave me this beautiful piece of chrysocolla, and as you can see, and these lovely multicolored beryl beads. Now this one I created with gold colored and silver plated wire, so you can see the mixture of colors on the wire that create a sort of, you can see more of the twist maybe on the stem with it, and it's got this lovely little bounce in it as well, so that gives you an idea of, if you had this shape of stone, what I had to do when I connected these roots. I actually put a bit of glue there, and I might have to do that with this other one. So if you're worried about, you've got something quite large, a stone like that, put a drop of glue, let it glue to that top first before you bring the roots down. And actually this one, I've just put some masking tape there to stop it from scratching, but I brought all the roots around the base, and they're anchored at that point around the base. Because this one is a stone that won't sit up that easily, I've put it in a pot that will have you know, a few little stones around it to keep it in place, but it makes the beautiful chrysocolla stand out, and you want to see that stone as well as the tree. And here's another little beautiful one with you can use any size of semi-precious base that you want and make something much smaller, maybe as your test piece before you go on to a bigger one. And they look absolutely beautiful set in pots, or just put on the bases. Right, so to create put this on a base, I'm just going to bring this clearer cloth so you can see this beautiful piece of stone here. So what you have to do is position it where you can see it's going to sit well, maybe in obviously the center, and then decide, do you want your roots splayed out like that to give it more balance, or do you want them more thread-like? That's completely up to you. And what I would do at this stage is pop some glue there, and then anchor it down with another piece of wire. So I'm not quite ready for that, so let's just get the wire, and then leave it dry either overnight, or you can, you know, come back to it in a couple of hours depending on the glue. I tend to use E6000. So I'm just going to anchor it with another piece. I'll cut this wire off later. See, I'm bringing it around like that, and that just gives me something for it to hold on to. Oops. There we go. Just twisting the wire will keep it in place. And then you've got to sort of bring these wires around. So if you can find little anchor points that grooves into your stone, that will sort of keep the roots in place. That's what I would do. So I'm going to continue working on this, and then eventually I'll cut my anchored wire, and then I'm going to come back and show you how I rearrange the whole thing into a finished piece of sculpture, because at the moment the blossom is all over the place. So come back to me when I've got it all anchored on. So here we have anchored all the wires from the top to the base in a very messy way, but they are held together. So what you can do at this stage is just trim off any areas that you can, and just take those messy bits off that you know you're not going to cut through and weaken it, and then make sure it's completely flattened. So there's my mess at the base, but when I take it over to the top, I haven't glued this one, but to make it sit tighter, if you take your pliers and just twist, what that does is tightens the wires around the stone. Now, just if you're using black tourmaline like I am, this is a very, very flaky stone, so you will find a little bit of residue on your mat as you're making it. And because it can so easily flake, just be careful, you know, don't be rough with it. Try and use your hands when you're putting it on rather than your tools. So each rock that you buy will be completely different. So if you can find areas that you can anchor it in, you see I can find a little area there that I can push the wires into that little groove. That will help stabilize. And because you don't want straight lines on anything, just keep going round, tweaking, and that will tighten the whole piece, because when you do put it round the stone, you'll find that it's still wants to move a bit. So you can spend as long as you like, really, working on the roots, making it look as nice as you can. And then I suppose that for me, the fun bit is to sort out the blossom and rearrange it in a sort of a nice sort of tree shape. So again, I would use my pliers to bend, because you've just got straight stalks, and bend little kinks and curves in the blossom. Now you could use a pen, pencil, any mandrel to create these little shapes, and that makes it look far more organic than the sort of straight sprigs that you've got. So again, I'm going to spend a bit of time shaping all these branches, rearranging it, and you'll probably find that you'll do it one day, come back and look at it, and want to rearrange it another day. So it does take sort of 2 or 3 days to walk away from, come back to it, until you're absolutely satisfied with the overall shape. And it's got to work in the round, because it's like a piece of sculpture, so you want to see it in all dimensions, in sort of you know, on every angle. It's got to work. So really, that's all you keep doing. So it's not hard to do. It's just there's a lot of repetition, I suppose, but you're using your hands mainly, not your tools. A lot of twisted wire, which is soft. They're such good fun to make, and they make fantastic presents, because you can use the birthstone of the recipient. You could do a family tree with all the birthstones of your family. You could make a lovely christening present for a lovely, you know, for a newborn baby with their christening stone or their birthstone on it. Wedding present, it could be the birthstones of the bride and groom. And as you can see, it's a very versatile and lovely thing to make. So there you see it's already taking shape, and you can see the tree is starting to blossom and take shape. And there you have it. So have fun. Chalmers Gems have got all these gorgeous bases for you, and also the gemstones for your blossom, and you can create your own beautiful structures for gifts or for your own home.